Hi there, my name's Isha and welcome on board here at the Higher Life Academy. In this week's episode of Higher Life TV, I really want to touch on what is your ego and why your ego is in fact one of the strongest allies in your life. Now this may seem a little unusual at first because at least in my experience over the last 10 years of working in the area of personal transformation, there is a strong belief out there that the ego is in fact a very troublesome part of yourself. It is the part that kind of stops you from being spiritual or is responsible for a lot of those thoughts, beliefs and behaviors that can be very limiting. And there is of course a element of truth to this, but it can kind of get us caught into this trap that our ego is something we need to be fearful of, or we need to try and whip into line somehow, or at least have some kind of apprehension towards it. And I really want to use the next 10 minutes to radically shift your perspective on your ego. So let's start with what is an ego. Now, your ego is in fact your socially constructed self. And what do I mean by that? I mean that your ego is that part of yourself that is shaped. It is 100% shaped by the conditions that you were born into and that you have grown up in, and I call that our socialization, right? So you are socialized into the society in which you are born, and your ego is your social self, right? And how does that happen? Well, it happens in the womb. It starts in the womb and it continues to happen right up until this point. Right now, your ego is being conditioned by whatever is happening in your life, where you're living in the world, what the cultural construct is, what the gender construct is, what the religious construct, everything that is out there in the external world is influencing you in some way, shape or form. However, when you're in the womb as a baby and as a very, very small child, especially as a small child, you're not as able to have any influence over how your ego is shaped. So, for example, if we consider that human beings are in fact energy beings, we're made completely of energy. That means that we are constantly shaping ourselves. Our energy is constantly moving and it's transforming. And in fact, being human means that we are just an energy that continually transforms itself. And how this manifests in the real world is that we transform from being a baby into a toddler, into an adolescent. We're physically transforming, we are emotionally transforming, we are mentally transforming all the way through our lifetime. But the minute that that transformation or that energy that we're made of and that ability to constantly transform means that we're highly malleable. We are incredibly malleable. We are like plasticine, even more malleable than plasticine. We are just shaped. So if you think about that moment that you come out of your mother's womb, right, and you are born, bang, into your first ever social context, your family, right? And your family is living in another context, right? It's living, your family is living in a particular nation, right? In a particular part of the world, in a particular set of conditions. So, I was born into a family in Australia. We had peace, we had prosperity. However, in my family system, there was, a breakdown of that family system and divorce. So there was a lot of conflict inside my family system. However, I was living in a place that wasn't in conflict. Now, for you or for other people, you can be born into a very stable family system that is living in a conflict zone, right? So how we are born, the place that we're born into, the family that we're born into, immediately that social context starts shaping us as human beings. We start responding to those conditions, right? We respond to the mother that we have and the way that she nurtures or doesn't nurture. We completely adapt, right? So if we have a very nurturing mum, we feel nurtured and we respond in a certain way. If we have a mum who is has dysfunction or is unable to nurture or has addictions, we respond to that, and that becomes our norm. Right? So the family system that you grow up in and the relationship that you have with your mother is probably one of the most influential in terms of how your ego has been shaped and how it's evolved over time. So how come your ego is then your greatest ally? Well, your ego, you need that. You need to go out there and be able to thrive in the world out there, thrive socially, be able to thrive in all types of social contexts. And your ego is the person who can do that for you. However, if, like many of us, you have gone through a system, a family system or a cultural system or any other kind of system where there has been a lot of dysfunction, your ego has been shaped dysfunctionally. Your ego is dysfunctional. So the idea is that we want to move from having a dysfunctional ego, that is trying to fight their way through life to get their needs met, or trying to please their way through life to get their needs met, or using any other type of typical dysfunctional behaviors in order to get your needs met. Because when you're a child, right, when you're a baby born into that first family system, your ego's top priority is your survival. Your ego wants you to survive, and it wants you to thrive in the world. It has an intention for you to thrive, and it does that by adapting to whatever context it's in order to survive and to thrive. So you are sitting here now today because your ego did a good job for you. You are here, you are surviving. Maybe you're not thriving, but you have the potential to be, because your ego stepped up and it shaped you in a way that you could function in whatever conditions you were in. However, if you want to be thriving in your life rather than just surviving your life, if you want to be operating out of a very healthy ego, you really do need to meet your ego and be sensitive to the way your ego has been shaped and actually explore and understand that. You need to go back to the very beginning, to when you're in the room, and explore and examine and reflect on the type of family system you were born into. Reflect on the type of cultural values you were born into, the gender values, the sexual values, absolutely everything that was influencing the way that your ego has been shaped, so you can fully understand your ego self. Right? Just like a parent who wants to understand their child, you need to become that wise, loving parent and go back and go, hey, ego self, what's your story? How did you get to be where you are? And then you get to ask, where do you want to go next? In what aspects of our life would we like to be healthier and higher functioning and thriving? Now, this is a very difficult thing for the ego to do on its own, to actually transition from being a dysfunctional ego or a partially healthy ego to a very healthy, thriving ego. And that's where we call on the aid of our soul, right? So our soul is that very authentic part of us. It's the part of us that is our true self, you could say. It's the best representation of our true nature. And in times like this, in times where you have realized that your ego self or your socially constructed self is not getting you the results that you want in your life, you don't condemn it, but you do step back from it and you engage a different part of yourself, which is your soul self. And you decide to dive a little bit deeper into your own psyche, dive a little bit deeper into the experience of being human, and get in touch with a different power base, the power base of your soul, so that your soul can step up and start guiding your ego to start making choices and to start shifting and changing transforming its mindset to become a different type of socially constructed person. So I really just want to leave you with that today, that your ego is your socially constructed self. That is all it is. It is nothing more, it is nothing less. It is not harboring any demons, it is not the enemy. It is just simply a part of yourself that has been out there, navigating the world, navigating your social dynamics. It has been helping you to survive and often to thrive, depending on the kind of family and the kind of life that you've had. If your ego is in a place where you think it's not giving you the results you want to be getting, you definitely want to be taking some time out and tapping into exploring your soul self and start having some play dates. Now, I know I use that term because I'm a mother, but it just came to me the other day. Wouldn't it be great if my soul and my ego could just have all these play dates and they could just chit chat about what my ego has been through and all the amazing things it's done for me and all the pain and all the trauma that it is holding on to, so that I didn't have to face it myself. It's a part of me that compartmentalized and held on to all those things that as a child I just couldn't possibly process. But now as an adult I can. And over the last several years of my life, or much longer, to be honest. It's been a personal focus of mine to really dig deep into my ego self and to understand it and to help it heal and transform. And I'm still knee deep in that process, and it is at times very taxing, but it's become a passion of mine, and it's why I was so excited to teach this lesson today. Now, of course, I will always be diving deeper into these topics in certain masterclasses that will be coming up over the next year, and hopefully getting out there into the community and to start talking and raising awareness around some of these concepts, these spiritual concepts that have real value and real power in your life and have absolutely nothing to do with any kind of religion or spiritual ideology. Just a practical way that you can live your life and feel really good in yourself and feel really well adjusted in this world that we are currently living in. So I really hope you get out there today, or in the next week, and let your ego and your soul have an amazing play date and get some great results. Now, if you want to know any more about who I am or how I help people, I do have a website, www.isharopitcoach.com.au, and I will be launching the Higher Life Academy a little bit later in the year. So, make contact, join one of my lists, and make sure you're up to date on what's happening here at the Higher Life Academy. Until next time, take care and love life.